Hello? Can anybody hear me out there? Hey, what's up guys? It's Miguel. We'll be starting the stream pretty soon, a couple minutes. Just wanted to see if everybody is around. If you guys can reply from Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. If you guys can hear me, that would be awesome. Awesome. Facebook, yeah, you could hear me. How's it sound? Pretty good. Also, if you guys could hear the music, if it's too loud, let me know, or if it's not loud enough. How's everybody doing this weekend? Hope everybody's doing good. Alright, looks like we're starting to have some people join. So let me go on my main screen. So we'll get started in 1 minute. Sorry, I'm gonna be coughing here and there, so I'm gonna mute myself when I cough, so that we're all good. You guys don't hear my coughing. Can everybody else confirm YouTube or Twitch if you guys can hear me? So we could get this going. Morning. How's it going, Chris? Lucrecio, hi, how's it going? Hey, what's up? Celio. Okay, cool. Thanks for confirming. I think we just need one more two confirmations from the other Facebook, and then we'll get started. So let me talk about a little bit about myself before we actually get started on the content. This is my website. Visual effects artist for the last 20 years or so, working on film, mostly model asset supervising, doing textures, some concept, and just developing the pipeline. So this is kind of my website. If you guys want to know more about it, you guys can go to magvfx.com to check it out. There you'll find links to my collectible stuff that I'm gonna be showing you guys today, and other things like also social media and stuff. Here's a few other links to Francisco. Thanks for confirming. Some of them, in case you guys are wondering, what some of the projects I worked on in the last couple years. Here's my collectibles website, where this is some of the stuff that I took to the Lightbox Expo and Monsterpalooza and those type of events. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram, it's magvfx. And one thing I wanted to talk about, this past weekend I attended and I had a table at the Lightbox Expo. It was amazing to have some of you guys come by and tell me about the stream, how you guys are enjoying it, and talk about future projects we could potentially do on the stream. So that was really cool for you guys to like stop by and give support, and the Pixelogic staff stopped by too. That was cool. Got to meet lots of amazing artists, people that I probably wouldn't have met in LA, that people that came from all over the world, which is really cool. So one of the things that you guys should be super excited for is the Zbrush Summit, which is coming up like in 2 weeks or so. So I hope you guys are going to attend. If you guys are in LA, that'll be awesome. So let's see, what else do we have to show you guys? So some of the stuff I worked on this week, just kind of to give you guys a little bit of a a look of my process of how I go about designing some of these like helmets and stuff, Yeah, sorry, I'm just kind of just going through things, but yeah, feel free to ask questions anytime. One of the awkward Asian dudes. No, everybody was cool. I'm glad everybody stopped by and like was able to chat and give the support. So I did these renders of where we're at last week. I just did a little bit of refinement. One thing I did in ZBrush was do like the automatic UVs there. so that I could take it to Substance Painter and just kind of go and start doing some renders and seeing if I'm liking the design and what potential finishes I want to do, you know, how much wear and tear it may have. And this is before putting any type of detail. So I do these renders, you know, here and there, like if as early as I can, but sometimes like some of the shapes aren't quite I'm not happy with, so I won't, you know, I'll try to take them to Keyshot, but Keyshot's nice, but I prefer Substance Painter just because I could start adding some wear and tear of potential things I want to do with the paint job. That's kind of where we're at with that. Um, so here's here's the design. I added a little more things just to the chest so that it feels more presentable. I also have a body just to make sure it's fitting the body. I'm not just making this stuff kind of too too out there, and then that actually doesn't fit a person, because I'm thinking of potentially printing these out life size and then me even wear them myself or have somebody else wear them or walk around conventions and that type of stuff. Or just like I was saying last time, little prints that are maybe 3 inches to 5 inches tall that you can put at your desk that are cool to have. Oh, thanks, man. Really appreciate you checking out the prints at the expo. Yeah, so so one thing that I wanted to circle back to was like the initial design of this guy, right? So this is like the first design that kind of inspired some of this of like the type of helmets I want to make for this series, um, which is like the Forgotten Kingdom type of series that I'm doing. So right now, I think I got all the shapes where I want them to be. There's like nice and clean. They could be a little cleaner, but this is still design stage, so we can still change things if we wanted to. So one of the things that sets us apart that I'm noticing that after looking at some of these references, I collected some more references like this stuff, how clean some of this stuff is. Sometimes there's not a lot of design elements, or if you look at this type of stuff, um, excuse me, they're pretty simple. Some of the simple, materials, kind of like the metals and stuff. So sometimes you don't need to add that much detail, maybe some rivets here and there. But what I'm thinking is that we're going to make him feel like he belongs in this world with this other character, right? So some of the things that we're probably going to cover today are, I started doing some, but we'll start one from scratch so you guys can see how I do it, so you guys don't feel like I just went out there and you guys didn't get to see how this all works. Was adding some of these details, that are going to make this feel a little more detailed, more busy, but not too busy where like it's going to take away from the overall design. And if some of these are, we'll take some away and just maybe just have one or two. But I'm going kind of with the theme of three. So a lot of this stuff has three little filigree elements that are kind of just there. This one only has two because this one's looping around. But then we have this top one down up there. So some of the stuff that I added was like this trim. Because if you notice, this guy has this trim here. So I wanted to make sure he felt like it was still in the same world. So if I turn that off, you kind of see that there's also some here. And I feel like those things add a little bit of visual interest, but not too much, and it kind of helps reinforce that that's an edge and keeps your eye kind of going. Feel free to ask questions anytime if you guys have any questions of how I'm doing this stuff or why I'm doing this stuff. So as we're talking concept design and just overall design, like why are we making these decisions and are they working, are they not working? Let's see, I think my Substance file, so here's kind of what that looks like in Substance. Let me just minimize it so you guys can see kind of where I was at like yesterday to where I'm at now. So you see, like, the simplicity of this works as well, so we could leave it kind of that simple and just put a few rivets, but I wanted to feel like it belongs in the world with the other character. So I started adding some of these and just kind of seeing what that's doing, how that's looking. I'm adding those materials to seeing like, okay, it looks good. I think it's working. It's not too busy, but now we have to go and detail those guys because they're just obviously little tubes that are just not doing much. So now that we saw that, I'm gonna close this off and get rid of it. But so that's kind of what we're gonna be doing today. One other thing that I also did was I really kind of liked the design that I had previously, which was this guy. So one thing I went back and I did um, was change a few things. Like we had a previous piece here that was sculpted a little differently, and I felt like that kind of took away. So I wanted to bring it back to the world of this guy, but kind of the opposite, where like the biggest part of the design is at the bottom of the like the breathing holes, but also using the booleans to kind of add more eye vents for him to be able to see. So some of that stuff got created with the Nanomesh, because at first I was placing them by hand and I was like, oh, I want like 5 of them, but then I wanted more spread out. So one thing I did was use Nanomesh to kind of do all that. Any questions so far? Okay, nothing so far, thanks. um, so I kind of went back and I kind of just refined that a little bit, because I still feel like he could be part of this world, or maybe slightly different, because there's not a lot of flat spaces for him to add that filigree stuff, but it's still cool. So I wanted to kind of keep that just in case I wanted to do something else with it. But I wanted to show you guys, like, I'm still using some of the old assets, but now we're just making these guys a little, you know, for maybe for a different project, or maybe for a more like space age type of stuff. So now let's go to this guys. So one thing I did was Z-remesh those guys. Let's turn off the boolean. So because if you leave the boolean on, it does this weird like double surface type of deal. But I want to show you that I just did a Z-remesh and extract. So I'll show you guys how I went about that, so that you guys can do it if you guys are following along, or want to do this for your own project. You guys can. Okay, let's see. So let's hide that guy. And that guy is, I think that guy, yep. So let's clear that mask. So all these things are added that we later could merge into the design. Um, so one thing that I do is, like, you know, I kind of want to go with that shape of the triangle, but instead of just terminating it, you know, just have it be like a straight line. That's kind of too boring. So I kind of like the little back arrow, but of course it gets harder and harder to do as you go this way, right? Um, but for that, you can just make your brush a little smaller and still add that little shape. So I'm trying to keep them on top of that vent, a little vent system that we did last time with the alphas. So that's kind of what I did. I go in here and I look, and I was like, well, this one's starting to go too low. You know, maybe this one could go a little lower so that they all kind of match where they're at. And that feels pretty good. So now we can go to extract. So we want to extract that as a separate piece of geo so we can control it much better if we want to push it in or out. Um, and then it's like, okay, that's cool, but it's maybe just a little too thick, or you know what, it's okay. So let's go with it. So once you accept, it makes it into a piece of geo that you can start modifying. So one of the first things I do, see, it's pretty dense. So that's a good thing and the bad thing, but at this point, I just want to smooth all the edges, so I'm just kind of just using smooth to get rid of all those little jaggy things. And one other thing I want to do is hit them with the, let's do a damp standard to get a peak, so they're not just flat. See how they're just kind of flat, which is sometimes that works, but a lot of these I went in there and I added just a little bit of curvature. Feel free to ask any questions if you guys have any questions. Um, using Alt and just kind of pushing that out so that you give it a little bit of a volume. How's the music so far? Is the music too loud? Not loud enough? Let me know. So now that we kind of broke that, now there's 2 levels of detail there. We can go in there, and I like going to Z-remesh. So we go to geometry, Z-remesh. You guys can see what this is gonna do. So I should clean it up much nicer for me. So there we go. Now we have something that we can start playing around with subdivisions and start tweaking in a better way. So from there, we can divide it. Oh, the reason I don't want to stay in like such a high side division is because if I start moving stuff, it starts to be kind of slow, You know, even if I went to like 5. So at this point I could go back to 1, and this is like butter. Like you could just melt it into the shape. And here things are starting to hover, so here I could just overall move the overall design down. Let's see. And if you're starting to see it like, oh, I only want to modify that center one, yeah, sure, you can make a poly group. Like right now, they're all the same. But if you do auto poly group, you can move, select those guys individually, which works as well. That's another way to work. But one that I prefer is using the move topological brush, because then I don't have to mask and unmask or hide and unhide, and I could just move that individual piece by itself. If that makes sense for you guys. And kind of taper those guys in so that they taper into the design, not just stick out like an extrusion, because I don't think that's the way it really works and it looks nice. It just looks pasted on. Where here I'm tapering that stuff so that there's a peak at the center, and then just kind of work around that. Cool. So here obviously we need some more resolution because we kind of want to match these little flower things. So one of the things that I was looking at is this flower design stuff, right? Like a lot of this stuff kind of informs me like what kind of designs I want to do, what kind of curves I want to use, and then from there I kind of make it my own. But it's cool to look at this stuff because then if you want something that has more curvature, you could add some of this stuff. Uh, but luckily for me, I kind of want to keep it simple and just kind of like a leaves in the center. So we'll go with that. Yeah, I think it's pretty easy nowadays. When I started, there was hardly any type of tutorials out there that can really help you. But I think if you're trying to learn this at home by yourself and don't want to spend a lot of money, YouTube or just looking at channels like this, like the Pixelogic channel, it's free and there's tons of data that you can like learn from, and you could ask different artists the different tips. Um, so there's really no special courses. I do teach at a couple different schools like Nomen and Studio Arts, and also do my own mentoring. But that's more for like very very specific questions that are more like a higher end, or or people that need just guidance to see if they even want to do any work in 3D. Um, but I think if you just go on YouTube, or check out any of the Nomen DVDs, you'll learn so much. Or even flip normals, and there's all these things now everywhere that you can learn from. So you don't need to like go to school for this stuff and spend thousands of dollars learning. So here we're gonna go a little higher, right? Subdivide those guys a little more. Uh, Maybe run a little bit of a smooth just to get rid of more of those jaggies. But even then, it's not a big deal because one of the things we're gonna do with damp standard is kind of cut those away. It's like if you had an X-Acto knife and you're just like, okay, I don't want this stuff, so you could just hit it and see how sharp it becomes. So from there we can start tapering this stuff off so that it has like a nice point. And of course I want to kind of keep that curvature going, so I just come in here and see how I'm kind of cutting away like the stuff that I don't need. And that's just tucking underneath the geo, so you're never going to see it. Um, Especially later on where you see remesh it all together, it just kind of disappears. So you don't have to worry about the bottom stuff. And here, if you want to be more fine, you could shrink your brush down so that it's more coming to a point. So now that this is nice and sharp, I could start moving some of this stuff, like getting rid of some of these little wobbles. Well, the main thing for the move brush that I recommend is moving down to between 5 and 15. I tend to kind of go 8 or 10, somewhere in that range, so that I can get rid of some of these little wobblies guys. And it's like not disturbing the surface, because if I had it pretty high, like the way it is, if I start moving stuff, you see how it causes more dents. Kind of don't want to do that, so I want to keep it nice and slow, and it might take a little bit of time to get rid of all these little wobbles, but I'm doing this for fun. If I was doing it for this production, I would probably go a lot faster, but because we're just kind of exploring with design and having fun with this stuff, it's we could take our time. So let's continue on that piece, and then we'll go ahead and do the rest. the rest of those guys, so you guys can see how that all works, and we'll take it back to Substance if you guys want to see that workflow as well. So I think I moved it by accident. So let's, or maybe it's too much. So maybe let's move it back down a little bit because these are sticking out way too much. And sometimes you learn that maybe this is too much, so you have to just tone it down. But having this subdivisions helps so much because then um, you can make quick changes on something that's heavy or really detailed and not affect the rest and not have it affect your design. How's everything going so far, guys? Everything good? Cool. So let's go back to a little higher resolution. And yeah, you can make yourself a little library of your little filigree designs or whatever you guys have. But for me, the fun is in creating some of these guys from scratch and from the surface, so they're already kind of match the surface that we're trying to put them on. So from here, we can start using either the mag knife. That's if you want to download my interface, go to my Gumroad or go to magvfx.com and you have a link there if you guys want to use that. So from there, we can use my knife and I can start cutting these guys. You know, you could make them bigger if you want it to be wider. But let's see, I think I want to go somewhere in the middle between those two guys. So I think this might work. So I'm trying to, go to the stem of the section, like the part we defined earlier. But obviously you could put an alpha on this, you could put all kinds of stuff. But I just prefer to do it this way, just because for me it's more fun. So for, like, see, that one's going the wrong direction. So you want it to go like that. Then from there we can start, let's see, any questions? Nothing so far. Cool. And then we can start working on some of these guys to spread them out and make them feel more 3D, so it doesn't feel like they were just kind of cut out, and give them a little roundness. Just a little bit, so it just kind of breaks that mold line. So from there, it's like, well, is it not enough? Too much? It looks like I had going inverted. So from there, now that I pushed that one up, I can go back in there and start doing it the opposite, like adding a cut that goes down the center of all this stuff. So if it feels like it's not enough, then I could go in between each one of these guys and add one more cut and maybe shrink the brush down. And the main thing is to zoom out, because sometimes you look at this stuff too close and it's like it's not enough, but at this distance it feels like adding that extra one is gonna help. What do you guys think? And because we're doing all this stuff on the fly, it's it's kind of fun to be able to change it up if we don't like it as well. If we want to explore with other designs. So from there we start seeing, like, is it actually working? And that's where I like having all these shaders down here so that I can just kind of change things around and see how all this stuff is working. And maybe like this became kind of round, and it kind of works here, but I feel like for this design it kind of doesn't work. So one thing I want to do is probably go back to this by holding Alt and change this and make this a little pointier. So one other thing that I did on the other ones, is at the edges, I went in there and I pushed this in so that it starts to break that edge as well instead of just that roundness. So this is where it could become very time consuming. So this is kind of like, I guess a little boring, but it's all part of the design. But you can see now those things are breaking that edge that we had. But I think it's pretty important to add this stuff. Of course, sometimes when they become so small, it gets a little harder to do, but not a big deal. Yeah, whole bunch of lines. Oh, thanks, San, Kier Umi. So here, you see, like here, it's pretty important to break that up, because now we're getting that split, and now we can make that guy a little sharper, so that it feels like. There we go. That's kind of more what I wanted. What do you guys think? How does it read for you guys? So the reason I keep changing to like a different subtool so that it doesn't stay highlighted, because sometimes when you look at this stuff highlighted, it kind of pops too much. But here, if you look at it, like now it's not popping as much. It blends in. It feels like it's starting to become that. So from there, we can just move on to the next one. One thing to do also often is save. So here I'm just saving. I would say save every 20 minutes, because at least you just lose 20 minutes instead of losing hours. Alright, so now that that's all saved, let's go on to the next one. So we're going in here as well and kind of cutting away. So it's like if I was using an X-Acto knife and just kind of trimming away the excess of stuff that I don't want. I hope this helps some of you guys. Hey, what's up, Hannibal? How's it going? I save a brush instead of project because I kind of redo all my lighting and all the shader assignment. I don't need to worry about it painting, so I just kind of always save as and it's also smaller file size. So here I noticed I left a little gap there, so one thing I want to do now is kind of mimic what's going on there, like just a little higher, so I can make my brush pretty big and start doing this just a little higher so that we have that little bit of a gap and everything feels like it's designed with a purpose instead of just kind of dirty design. But let's go ahead and keep tweaking that guy. So let's start breaking some of those guys up. Well, first we need to add the damp standard that's kind of going outwards, right? It's pushing outwards, and then we can start cutting with the mag knife, mimicking what's happening with those guys. And because this was not made with a machine, I like keeping some of those little imperfections, because I feel like it adds to the design, like making it feel more handcrafted. If I was doing more of a robot, I would probably go and spend more time and make sure the spacing is like perfect on these guys. But we're also playing around with the design, so at this point, we're just kind of like playing around and making sure if we even like this, because I don't want to spend 2 hours on this and then be like, I kind of don't like the way this is going. But a lot of this is kind of rinse and repeat. So some stuff is not as exciting as it probably could be. But you see, even just adding a little bit of curvature there, you see that when I cut it later, it helps to make it feel a little more 3D as opposed to just a stencil that was kind of stamped on top. And we can start playing around with this early because we know we want to make it sharp. Now we're going back to cutting it in half. So something pretty big that I learned a long time ago was making sure we have areas of rest. I think I was taking a Jordu Shao class, and that's one thing he always talks about, adding areas of rest, um, which helps a lot. You know, it's like having this big area of rest and just having this little element. And same thing with these guys, you know, so that when you're seeing it from far away, it still reads, but you see all the little details disappeared. But if you start getting closer, okay, it starts to break up that design, so it's not just a big flat surface. Do you guys agree with that or not? What do you guys design experience? I'd like to hear from you guys. What you guys think? So now we're gonna go and start cutting the reverse, right? Um, and start cutting some of these. So how's everybody's weekend going so far? Did you guys check out that new It movie? I've been wanting to check it out, but been a little too busy trying to recover from Lightbox and work and everything, you know. Heard it was really good, so I'm kind of excited to check it out sometime. So over there, we want to kind of start matching some of that. How long would I spend on this model? I try to spend the least amount of time I can because it's just like for fun, and I'm just making this for just for myself pretty much, and you know, kind of to show you guys some of this stuff. So I think so far between these designs, like that first design, it's probably been, let's see, 2 hours a session, probably about, it's 6 hours, but I'm not really working all the time, mostly talking and that type of stuff. Probably 6 hours or so, maybe another 2 hours. So maybe 8 to do like 2 or 3 designs. So it's almost like it comes down to, once you have that first design that you spend like the first 2 or 3 hours, then you can make variations. So maybe about 8 hours for 2 or 3 designs. You know, in the earlier, the previous stream, we explored some other designs that didn't work. So that's probably like another 30 minutes of stuff that we were just exploring. But yeah, I want to say no more than a day. How do you guys think? I think that's a pretty decent amount for like 2 designs. If it was only one, maybe it'll be tougher. You know, it'll be like, I would say it's maybe too much time. But because we're just making these for fun and we're gonna 3D print them, I think 8 hours is probably fine. But if I was doing this for production, I think the 8 hours of exploring the design is cool. But I'll probably have to spend another 2 days retopologizing it from scratch and then UVing it so that we could take it into like a real VFX shot or commercial or something. So it'll probably be like a 3 day type of thing. Does that help, Craig? So even for this, I started with like, you know, these guys were like the overall pieces were just Dynamesh, and then I go back and zero mesh and reproject the detail. So it's easy for me to kind of clean up the designs. Um, and that's something that I will probably do later on, like retopologize and all that. But for this stuff, like I was saying, it's more for fun than for anything else. Oop, wrong one. Also, I think Zbrush just froze. Cool. Yeah, that's kind of, you want to do as much stuff as you can within a couple hours, see if you like where it's going, because it's a shame if you were to spend a lot of time and then all right, we'll wait for a minute here. It seems like it's frozen a little bit. Um, so you guys could feel free to ask questions right now. I'm not sure if you were here earlier, Craig, um, when we did the first stream, but if not, I'll show you some stuff that we did. Um, oh, you weren't? Okay, cool. Let me, that way I don't know. So like sometimes there's design changes, you know, like this stuff here. Like this is before I added any detail. Like at this point I felt like this was working, but then I actually didn't, so I removed and hid this guy, the bottom spike. So sometimes you have to go back on your designs before you commit to them and kind of change that up. But that happens a lot, but that takes 5 and 10 minutes to fix and then add detail again, you know? And this is the way that guy kind of ended up with a quick render in Substance. Nothing fancy. Yeah, they look kind of cool too, but after really looking at it, it just felt like there was too much competition on the spikes, you know? Like they all felt too even, where like you want one spike to really emphasize the face, specifically that one in the cheekbones, to kind of bring you into the eyes. So sometimes you have to. Hi from Japan. How's it going? Thanks for joining. So sometimes you have to change some of this stuff, you know, even though you kind of might not want to. But it helps to step back, you know, and like making sure that you're always looking at this stuff, you know, all 360. So like, let's hide that guy so that. So that you can really see if it's working from all angles. And I feel like this kind of works. Like overall, I like it. It's going the right direction. But even when I'm doing all this design stuff, like adding all these things, you know, like well, I guess now that we're doing those guys, we can go in here and delete these other guys. Get rid of those guys since we already have them on a separate. And I could see here like, oh, is it too busy? Maybe, but I'm also gonna shrink these down once I start cutting them down, so you kind of see like, oh, they're not gonna take up that much space. And then also if they're protruding too much, I could start, maybe they're competing too much with this like flat spot. I could maybe push them down so they don't feel so apparent. Uh, yeah, I know that's what I'm hoping to make this like a cosplay. Like I have a few friends that cosplay. Maybe it'll be cool to do like the full suit and have them walk around a convention just for fun, you know? Yeah, like a Christmas tree. Yeah, it becomes exactly like you want to mimic your designs like nature, like a pine tree or that type of stuff. But sometimes it becomes way too much, so sometimes you have to change it. Um, for me, like this feels like it was going in the right direction, you know. And now we go ahead and do some more of this stuff. Or what you could do as well, like if this becomes too much, let's hide this guy. Let's go back to the helmet. You can also like just do it on here. Just make sure you have enough geometry. Oh, there was a mask there. So if you guys want to see what I'm talking about. So I had a mask for that trim. So that's why I didn't want to subdivide. So I think we need one more subdivision. One other thing that I was playing with the other sculpt and this sculpt that we can look at as well, if you guys don't want to do this type of stuff and maybe it's too heavy-handed, is also just kind of let's make this inverse so I don't have to hold Alt. Let's make your designs like on the actual surface, and then from there, like adding more stuff. So sometimes this stuff works, but I feel for me like this doesn't feel intentional enough. Like it feels like maybe from here from the front it reads fine, but I don't like the way it's reading from the side. I feel like somebody should have really just etched it just like the other guys. So I'd rather just have them as 3D Geo. But sometimes you could enhance some of these other guys with that. Let's see. Oh, okay, that's good. It might be that maybe I'm talking a lot louder. But how does this sound? Does this sound pretty good? Murphy? Jay Murphy? Um, so one thing we can do, right, we turn those guys back on, is maybe half of them are done the way I was showing you guys. Let's get rid of this guy just for now. So let's go and start working with these guys. And this one includes some of the other stuff on the head, so we might have to subdivide that a little higher. So let's clean up some of this stuff now that we're here. You know, since we don't want some of that stuff kind of coming through. And the main thing is that we want some of this stuff to taper, right? So we want to make sure we look at this from a distance. And you see how it's tapering now? We can also make it wider, but I think the width is good right now, so that it doesn't start competing with other shapes. Oh, hi from Colombia, Edison. How's it going over there? What time is it over there right now? Is it early morning or is it later? So you see I'm starting to taper these guys out, but I think it's pretty important to stay at a distance, right? Because now it makes a big difference. So if you start looking, even looking at this, right, and we go back, let's go back more. So from there to there. See how they kind of look just like noodles. They were just on top, like somebody put some thick ramen um, or something. So with this is like, oh, okay, now they're starting to flow into the design, and I think that's super important for you guys to like take into consideration the design flow. And from here, we could still change some of the stuff. Like if I wanted to add, well, let's go to the other one, right? Move topological. If I wanted to add like an accent of curvature, you could start doing some of that. But I like them pretty straight for specifically for this design. So I might even have to straighten this little curve out. You know, then you can also pull it if you wanted to pull it further forward. Or in this case, maybe this one does curve. Maybe gives this guy a little room to start curving as well. But maybe not too much, because we don't want it to be all that way to that edge. So we could also move the whole design up. See that's kind of working. Like maybe this bottom one needs to be just a little longer. So this is where we could start using the power of the auto groups, so then we could isolate. Oh, those guys are connected. No big deal. We could just do it the old school way. Just no. So I like switching, instead of just painting the stuff, I like switching between these guys, the lasso tool, because sometimes, like in this case, it's much easier to just select it through the lasso tool. Start moving just that guy. But because they were connected earlier, I couldn't do the separate. And even then, here I can start pushing this guy up. And like we were doing earlier, I see that guy got pretty thin there. I think it must have been something I did. Let's see, when did I mess that up? I guess it was always a little messed up, so no big deal. Let's go back forward on time. What we can do now is just inflate so that guy's touching. And then we can push that guy down. So the nice thing about ZBrush is that if you mess up, you can go back and just redo it real quick. It's not a big deal. Yeah, I could do some creature sculpts too. It's just like I was in the kick for these helmets, so I wanted to do at least 3 of them. But I think with this one, we could probably for the next sculpt, the next session, we could start moving on to some kind of creature. I was starting to make these little relics, so maybe that could be like a little sculpture, a little relic thing that we can have. And it could be more creature based if you guys want that, which I'm down for because I love creature stuff too. So it's not just about helmets. But I figured at least for this helmet stuff, kind of cover some of this. So in case you guys do want to make some, then you guys can. Or at least get an idea of like, you know what, it's not that bad. It's actually pretty easy to make these helmets. So here, just add a little bit, you know, a little more curvature since we're kind of removing and pushing some of this stuff down. See what's going on. Here you see it's starting to become flat, so maybe just add a little more. A little bit goes a long way, so that's one thing to keep that in mind. or even here, right? Like right where we're merging it, like maybe it needs a little more volume. And also, main thing is to also smooth this stuff out, because sometimes it starts to get a little wonky. Like here, maybe we need a little more volume before we shrink it and then hit it with the smooth. It's looking pretty good, but you see here, that got pretty flat. Like it's actually sticking out of the surface. So that's when I could make it thicker. Move topological. And it's back on the surface. So I'm always looking at the profile, like what's happening with the profile, because sometimes it's easy to get lost and like start seeing that this stuff is becoming flat, or looking at it from like a couple different angles and be like, oh, okay, this needs a little, it has a little kink there, has a little kink here. So it's all consistent. Then go back to the higher resolution, smooth a little bit, and then cut whatever we don't want. But let's start playing with some of these guys, adding some of these spikes. Just to start figuring out how we're gonna do the other ones. Let's see, Alt. What do you guys think so far? It's pretty cool. It's not too boring. So let's push some of these guys down. So I want it to taper down, right? So same thing as we were doing with the other ones. I want the edges to kind of start tapering. Here we're getting some of the same issue where like it's coming off the surface, but no big deal because this actually has a taper, so it kind of works for us there. Oh, cool. I'm glad you find this interesting. I know this is like the stuff that sometimes you don't see people do because it's kind of boring and mundane, but I think it's pretty important for you guys to see like, oh, you know, reserve some time. It's probably going to be maybe an hour or two before we get a lot of these guys looking good, but at least where you guys can see like where this is heading. And here I'm just seeing there's a little bit of a gap, so we can start adding a little more roundness to those guys. So let's start cutting those guys up with the mag tool. So let's start with this guy. So I'm always trying to go towards that center line that I made earlier. Sometimes that center line is not always like perfect, so that's fine, because then it makes it feel like it's a little more organic. One important thing to notice too is that I'm cutting all this stuff in a similar direction. So you don't want to have these guys going forward, because then they're going to look kind of weird when these guys are all going like everything's tapering like a feather. So it's just little things to remember, that sometimes when you're like so deep in this or so close like detailing that you kind of forget. One of the biggest things that I notice people don't do is do test renders really early on. Even if it's not finished, like I was showing you one the design without any of this stuff, just like the big shapes, to see if that stuff is working for you. Because if not, then you could change direction pretty quick. So now that we know this is going that way, now we can start also making these guys taper more towards a point. Oh, that's Russian. I don't know what it says. Thanks if you're logging on from Russia. That's awesome. So cool. So now we have to add the other guy. Well, actually, we need to go and do the little bulging, we did earlier with some of this other stuff, right? So shrinking our brush. And it's just a slight little bulge because we're going to cut into it, so that would help. Just give you a little more detail. So you guys are interested in a little more more creature design stuff, right? So that way we can start fitting some of that stuff in and plan out. One thing I noticed that having this be every other week, and I'm not really touching it during the week because I want to make sure that we mostly do all this in stream. It's I kind of wish like it was like we did it every week. So maybe we might switch to every week if you guys are still digging this stuff. Um, but we'll see after the summit. I was supposed to do one after during the summit, but because the summit's taking over, we're gonna do it probably the week after or that week even after that, because everybody's gonna be tuning in for the summit. I'll be there as well, so if you guys see me around, feel free to say hi and stop by and let's chat. Who's going to the summit from you guys? Oh, hi. Thanks. Thanks for the translation. Appreciate it, because it's kind of hard to go into Google Translate while I'm streaming, and so that's now we need to go and add the cuts. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys tuning in this early in the morning on Sundays. Um, I know sometimes people are just getting started, but you guys are all over the world, so it's cool. Maybe it's your afternoon. You guys just chilling before you have to go to work tomorrow, or it's already Monday over there, wherever you guys are at, and you guys are just starting your day. But appreciate definitely you guys logging in and checking this stuff out. So there you go. That's starting to get somewhere. And we could probably cut those in half and add more detail, but I think for this time it's looking pretty good. Oh, awesome. Oh, hi from India. That's awesome. What's the point of ZBrush when Blender exists? ZBrush is like the industry standard. Blender is not yet. So, once that becomes industry standard, we'll probably switch over to that. But ZBrush is like really good for many things, and it's good for 3D printing, for visual effects, for games. It's good for everything. So it's like, why not implement it into your workflow? One of the things that I like to talk to artists is using different tools. Like I use VR, like Oculus Medium a lot, and then bring it to ZBrush and touch it up, or iPad Forger, like sketching there and then bring it to ZBrush. So like you could use the best of all these apps to bring them all together and just make your own creations. And I think sometimes people get very like, oh, I'm Mudbox, or I'm ZBrush, or I'm whatever other softwares, and it's like it's use them for their whatever they do best. But ZBrush tends to do everything. Yeah, it's a sculpting app on your iPad, which just got an update. It's really awesome. It's pretty good. I do a lot of sketching there, and then from there I bring it to ZBrush and fine tune it and like put all the detail in. It's more like a get your ideas out type of app. Yeah, I think ZBrush. I'm not sure of the prices on ZBrush. You can check out pixelogic.com for that. But it's pretty affordable, and I think now they have like a monthly program or every 6 months. So I think that's really helpful in case you can't afford to do the the full whatever it is, 800 bucks, whatever the prices are. Let me see if I can go online and find that for you guys. Um, but it's cool because it's more like the subscription thing, like everybody's doing, like Adobe and everybody else, you know. Let's see, store. Yeah, so they have all these plans now. So it's not too bad. It's actually pretty affordable. It's if you're gonna go monthly, use it for a few months, and then you don't only spend like 40 bucks a month or 8.95 for the whole year or for the continuous updates. And that's one of the best things about ZBrush, that you get all the updates for free. I think I bought mine like 2007 or 8, and I've been getting all the updates for free, which is amazing. I think when I bought it, it was like 600 bucks or something like that. But the prices are not bad at all. So I would highly recommend you guys, at least play around with ZBrush Core as well. Maybe you start with ZBrush Core and then upgrade. Um, let's see, ZBrush Core. How much is ZBrush Core? I guess it's on here. But, I say give that a try. Yeah, well, whatever the means are, if you're at work and you can use a free license from work, or they have free license you could take home, or you have to work at the studio, use their license, that would get you pretty far. So I'm really liking the way this is going. Like, I feel like it's going the right direction. One of the main, I guess, design elements of this whole project is keeping the idea of triangles, like everything tapering to one section. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for joining in. Sorry if I don't know your online name and I know your real name. So if I know you, just put what your real name is now. Reply. But thanks for joining. But yeah, the main idea is doing like the triangle thing. That's like the main design, I guess, emphasis on these guys. Let's continue on with more sculpting. Let's finish this guy up here. And sometimes if some of these became too busy and maybe they're too much, one tool that I like using is the clay. And it's really nice because you could go in there and just kind of erase things. Like if I wanted to just remove some stuff, I can. Or go remove a lot of these and then just redo them. Not a big deal. But let's just leave those as is. Oh, okay. Awesome, man. Thanks for joining. If this is the first time, this is like my third stream. So hopefully I'm doing good. Yeah, having fun, so it's cool for me, but I'm hopefully you guys are learning and having fun as well. But let's get started on this. Yeah, ZBrush is awesome. I love it. Let's see. So we're going back on. So a lot of this stuff is rinse and repeat, right? And let's start cutting some of this stuff. Because nobody wants like a check mark to be nice and round. I want it to be pointy and more menacing. Yeah, make sure if you guys like to see what I'm doing, I like posting a lot of stuff on social media, like the 3D prints and experiments of like some things that go wrong when you're printing some of this stuff. Or sometimes it's design changes that I just in the middle of the night, I'm like, I need to go change that real quick, and then post some images up. So this is just something that I'm doing for fun. A lot of the stuff that I do for work is like really different than this, but this is more just for my own design ideas and fun stuff. But I am working on characters all the time, so just not always armor. It's more like photoreal stuff, but it's cool. see. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how Blender does. I started to look into it as well because there's a lot of really nice modeling tools there. And well, the biggest selling point is that it's free, right? That's the huge selling point, at least for me, which is cool. But let's see, maybe that gives the industry a boost for like updating like Autodesk and other applications to kind of update their software or become more inexpensive for people to use more. But I guess we'll find out. But yeah, well, I guess use whatever you can, whatever you have available to you. I know sometimes some applications are expensive, or you can only use them at a studio, um, and that could be kind of hard when you're trying to learn new things. See, like I feel like that needs to start coming down. So this one we use move topological and just push that down so that the little check mark part starts to taper in. Probably same for these guys. Yeah, it's always good to try new applications because there might be one little thing that you might be able to use that's really cool. And experiment and always keep up with them. You know, there's so many applications nowadays, and we have to learn like Substance Painter, Substance Designer, Mari. You know, keep up with Maya, with what's new in Maya, all those applications. So do what you can. Maybe there's some cool stuff in Blender for remeshing, or even Houdini. There's a lot of cool things too. So never stop learning. Even after almost 20 years, almost 2 decades of working in visual effects, it's like I never stop learning. You know, then there's real time and everything else that comes along with all these applications. So let's add those in between guys too, because it feels like it needs them, especially when everything else around them have it. But being able to concept things quickly could really help you in your job, whether you're doing production or not, because you could show, that you can do other things besides just production stuff. Oh, thanks, appreciate it. I'm glad. Thanks for the feedback. I really, I make this stuff for myself. I like it, but doesn't mean anybody else likes it. Um, I just think it's fun and cool to kind of do this stuff. So if you guys dig it, that's awesome. See, for this one, like I like this trim, but it's all wobbly, so we need to kind of start fixing some of that stuff too. And sometimes the best thing to do is just use the move tool, but let's subdivide it one more time and start cutting some of that stuff away. If you guys do any traditional sculpting or any traditional casting of resin, this is like when you grab your X-Acto knife and just clean up the flashing. I tend to look at it that way, like this is just the flashing that needs to be cut away. But sometimes people don't see it until like you start doing this. So that's why I kind of wanted to leave it rough and have you guys see what I'm doing and be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like it looked pretty ugly, but now it doesn't. Or maybe it still looks ugly, I don't know. But I think it's starting to get there. See, like this stuff here, like this is pretty ugly. So let's cut some of this stuff away. Are you guys okay with the pace? Everything is working, not too boring? Since I'm still new, I'm not sure about the flow, like if everything's cool or not. I feel like it is, but I'd like to double check with you guys because I don't want to make sure you guys that are tuning in, you guys are having fun too or following along. Um, no, I don't even know what that is. Let's see. Let's look that up. like a lot of the references that I was showing earlier, if you guys weren't, I guess you guys weren't here for the other sessions, kind of looking at a lot of this stuff for inspiration. So there's all kinds of Lord of the Rings type of stuff, more mask, all kinds of different type of helmets that I'm kind of referencing just for fun, like stuff like this. It's a little more, I guess, medieval to more mechanical stuff like this. Just for like wear and tear and like design elements and why they chose to do some of this stuff. So this is kind of some of the reference that I'm looking at, in case you guys were wondering. Oh, awesome! I'm glad you guys are cool with that. Like it's going well, and you guys are enjoying it. But let's look up that reference somebody was talking about. Yeah, I guess it could be somewhere in this realm, but yeah, I guess it could. It's like where you can't see the eyes. It could be in that realm. I never even seen this before, but this looks pretty cool. Thanks for the reference, Link. Nice. Yeah. Also, some of the other things that I was thinking about mixing in is some of the costuming. I'm also thinking about the overall costuming of how this is all gonna work. Because eventually, if I'm gonna make a cosplay, I need to think about the rest of the design, right? So some of the costume designs that I've kind of been looking at, like especially this stuff with Hellboy, I really like how there's some crazy detail, and then there's like a leather outfit or this stuff is the stuff that I recently been looking at that I think would be cool if you had like helmet with some simple designs. So maybe have like a shoulder pad or some kind of a gauntlet or something, so that breaks up the design from being so busy to not busy to busy again. Maybe the boots, or even we could go in this route, more of a just overall detail as well. But I kind of want to change it up. Even stuff like this, where like they're using leather to kind of like bind some of the harder edge stuff. These guys are cool too. So it could be something just a big robe or hoodie. Let's see. There was some stuff that I was looking at yesterday that I thought was pretty cool. Like this stuff here. Like I thought this was really cool. So maybe I simplify it and make it just a simple robe or some kind of a simple design with a really nice like color accents. But another thing I was looking at too is like the way the metal was going to be rendered. Like this is cool. Let's see what else, or something like this. But obviously I'm not going based on any like specific theme of horses or stuff like that. But I could if I wanted to. Um, but yeah, let's see. Okay, we've been up for 1 hour, which is cool. Thanks for the uptime. Oh, somebody put some more reference stuff. Let's see. Let's check that out. Yeah, I really appreciate it. If you guys seen this stuff before and like have a better reference or some cool reference that I can check out, that would be. Oh yeah, like equilibrium stuff. Yeah. Like I feel like that's the more sleek design that I kind of want to do, where like you have something that's like you can't see this guy's face, but his body's like more simple. So yeah, I think there was one more thing that I saw that I thought might be interesting. Um, let's see. Like this stuff, I saw some of this. I'm like, maybe this is too clean. Doesn't look futuristic. This is just a guy in a suit, but maybe something like that could be cool too. But we'll see. You get inspired every day and find new references and that type of stuff. Yeah, the beginning of the session is gonna be available on YouTube afterwards, so you guys can check it out anytime. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to email me. Check out my website and email me through there, or send me a message through Instagram if you guys have any like how I did something, or any questions about even 3D printing, or obviously it's more ZBrush related because we're in the ZBrush channel, but feel free to email me if you have questions or how to get started. One of the big things one of the reasons I started doing this, because I had a lot of people ask me how I do this for conventions. Like what are the steps, like you know, they're 3D people or want to get into it or don't know how to use ZBrush or traditional sculptors. And I'm like, well, just do it in ZBrush. It's much easier. And you could change the scale. You know, sometimes I print stuff really small, like little magnets, or sometimes I print stuff life size. Like that's some of the latest things that I'm getting into for the cosplay and just for having a large piece of like helmets, like that are just cool, like warrior collection of helmets. Yeah, it could be God Complex helmet. But yeah, some of these are I don't know, the designs of helmets. It's like so interesting to me because it's like it depends what kind of heritage you're looking back, what century you're looking at. You know, whether you want to go futuristic. I like a lot of robot stuff, so I tend to do a lot of that. But I kind of wanted to try something, I guess, more primitive with not too many access panels and bolts and all that stuff. Because that's cool, but sometimes you gotta change it up. We'll do some of that probably in the stream too, you know, if you guys want, because that's also fun to do. But maybe we'll do a variety of stuff so that you guys can kind of, if you guys are more into sci-fi, we can do that. If you guys are more into medieval helmet stuff, we can do that as well, or whatever, you know, it doesn't matter as long as we're having fun and making some cool stuff. But as you guys can see, I keep it pretty simple with my tool set. Like these are all the brushes that I use almost for 90% of the time, whether I'm working on Avengers or any movie or doing this stuff. It's all the same stuff. It's one of the main things people ask, like, what brush are you using? It's like simple brushes. You guys have them now if you guys want them, you know, or my layout. So there's nothing complicated about it. And the way I kind of use my layout is basically how I use it at work. You know, like the steps of zero meshing, checking, making sure double surface is on, backface masking, using the Morph UV to make sure there's UVs on the objects if I need to, the multiple materials to check like how things are looking, you know, with different materials. Because sometimes you'll be informed by something being lumpy by a specific material you're looking at. So that's why I have these. Also, a big one is like the silhouette one, right? It's like, does this look menacing if you saw it in the dark? For me, it kind of does because it doesn't look human. It's like, what is this? Some kind of bird? Some kind of weird, just something strange. So I tend to kind of switch between materials because it helps a lot to see different things. Especially, you know, this one here. It's like the Maya blend. And then you can start seeing like, oh, there's a lot of lumpies here I need to go fix. And that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. Like how I'm going to clean some of this stuff up. But depending on the material you have, sometimes you don't see it. Sometimes you do. So it's kind of one of those things that, you know, you have to experiment with. Yeah, I actually worked on the first Avengers, the first one they ever made. And then I worked on, what was it? Not Endgame, but the one before that. I don't think I remember what it's called. But yeah, I worked on a lot of the Marvel films too. Yeah, sometimes I get inspiration for the films, but I try to not do too much fan art just because I was working on a lot of these films. But obviously, a lot of my inspiration comes from Star Wars. You know, like the Kylo Ren helmet. That's yeah, Infinity War. Sorry, thanks for reminding me. Um, but yeah, I was one of the presenters last year at the summit. If you guys check it out, I was the opening presenter. So I talked about Groot and some of the stuff we did there. Um, and then some of the other workflows we use for making animals and that type of stuff. So it was nice. I really thank Pixelogic for having us present. It was a little nerve-wracking, you know, being the first ones to open the summit, but it was once we started, it was pretty amazing. And the feedback from you guys was really cool too. You know, you guys, a lot of people really enjoy the workflow talk and showing all that stuff. So maybe one of these other years, we'll do another presentation. But I figure at least with the ZBrush Live, you guys can ask questions here. You're a nerd. Yeah, you know it, man. There's nothing wrong with being a nerd. So here I'm just using Alt to kind of push everything out on the normal. So I'm kind of revealing a lot of these little things that we're kind of starting to hide. But you see, I'm just going really small and kind of just taking care of these edges and any weird lumpy stuff, you know, kind of trying to get rid of it. Like trying to make this curve a little more consistent. But this is where, like, I guess as a professional, you kind of start seeing that, you know, that you're gonna have to go through these steps and I guess not power through them, like, or power through them, but don't rush them because they're pretty important. It's you know, it's all primary shapes and all that. A lot of my reference is just mostly insects, you know, sea life. That's like my main thing. But a lot of the stuff that I've been seeing lately for like the Doctor Strange stuff that some of these concept artists have been doing, it was like really inspirational to kind of help me design my own stuff. You know, kind of simplify but have it be elegant. I think that's a big thing that kind of pushes me to design this way. Yeah. Obviously, you want to have. One of the main things that I try to have is real reference, not other artists' reference. But it's good to have both. So if you find a fine balance between both of those, then that's great. And some people tend to just, you know, reference other artists. So I think it's not a good idea. Um, I think something somebody mentioned that I just remembered is doing like a Pinterest board. So I'll start collecting some of those so you guys can check out my reference too. You know, I'll upload this reference. So, let's see, what's some of the sea life stuff? Like this is some of the sea life stuff that I kind of was just looking at for, you know, just like a goblin shark. Like these guys, I really like the way this is. Like if we look at areas of rest, right? Look at this. This huge areas of rest, and then tons and tons of little detail. So like being able to like look at net reference from nature, it really helps a lot. Instead of just making everything super busy. And sometimes it's a lot about the texture. Like if you look at the surfaces, there's not much going on detail wise, but the texture is what's making it look really detailed. So that's why I like looking at this stuff, because if you look at a lot of the areas of rest, look at how big are these panels, you know, or how much of the surface there's you know, there's this little cuts, but then there's a big surface. So that's what I'm kind of all about, just like looking at nature and just kind of trying to mimic it on my designs. Sometimes it's like really weird, it's weird stuff, you know. But like for me, like this is like the mechanics of how this works. Like what if you had a helmet where like the mouth came out, you know? So I like looking at the stuff for inspiration. Yeah, a lot of this stuff, and I have a lot more reference, but this is just kind of stuff that I gathered just for this project, like kind of how I'm viewing things, so you guys can so you guys can see kind of what I'm talking about or what's inspiring me to make this design. So here I'm just kind of going with polish and trying to get the surface to feel a little better, you know, because right now they were starting to feel kind of lost. And you know, and then we can still go back like we were doing with the small designs and cut some of this stuff up and get rid of some of those lumpy things. See, like right now, like this is pretty inconsistent, so we can go in there and start maybe using H polish for that stuff. So now that we know that seems to be going flat, now we just need to make sure we move it out. See, so that now I can see a lot more contrast there, so I can see that this needs to be moved out a lot more. Yeah, thanks for the questions. I really appreciate those because that kind of helps me help you guys out to see what you guys are thinking or what do you guys have questions about a workflow or sometimes it's not even about like this is pretty simple, right? I'm just using like the damp standard and move mostly, but it's all about the design changes that I'm doing. Can somebody translate that stuff? I would like to know what it says. So it's working through a lot of this stream stuff, you know. Sometimes you have to add a little more resolution. So sometimes the problem is not the actual surface I'm working on, it's the one underneath that has maybe some lumpies or lumpy imperfections that I need to go back and fix. But in this case, let's see. I think it's a little bit of both. But remember, every time you guys change some stuff, that stuff's inside, so it doesn't matter. But now we can go and change that part of the helmet. And that guy, see, so it was that guy that has the imperfections. But not a big deal. Go and change it. Yeah, exactly. Most of the time it's about the design, how it reads, and if that stuff doesn't read well, then the details don't matter. Hi from Finland, Ollie. How's it going? We could do some of that recess stuff too. I could play around with that stuff so you guys can see how that works if you guys were doing recessed areas. Let me just fix a few little things here so we can at least get this going, making sure it's looking pretty good. Then we can oh, wrong tool. Back to move. See, so you can see here there's sticking out like too much. And how's it reading from a distance? Was that trim even necessary? Let's see, where's that at? It's like the third one. Yep, not that one, that's the one. So even just the little accents of those details, you guys can see how it makes a big difference. At least I think it does. Like breaking up this surface and this feeling kind of like what happened there, like, and now we have that little cut that kind of breaks it, and then have an extra edge. So it feels like there's multiple levels of this detail. But let's save this here and then do some experimenting with some more stuff. That's cool to see people from all over the world kind of tuning in and checking this stuff out. I really appreciate it, guys. All right, let's see, saved. So let's see, how do we do some recessed areas? Let's look at some reference real quick to see how we would do that. Let's see. Let's see, where can we add some recessed areas here? Let's hide this guy. And let's play around with maybe adding some recess. The main thing with some of the recess area stuff is making sure that you have enough geometry. Yeah, I know. I need to learn how to use D-model. I haven't really used it since I do everything in Maya. Um, but I think slowly I'm starting to kind of get in the groove of it. So hopefully in the next couple streams, maybe I'll start adding some of this stuff in Z-modeler. Oh, let's go this from the side view. I feel like that needs to be a lot higher. Let's go. So that's at 11 million, but it's also 11 million for the entire thing. So I could always split it. So sharpening some of those details. I kind of like what's going on there, but let's make that round. Let's fill those gaps in. And the nice thing is that you could always trim some of that stuff up, you know. So the way I like doing some of this recess stuff you were talking about for other recess, you know, depends how recessed you want all this stuff to be, and then just kind of hit it with. So you could do that as well, just masking and then adding some other recess detail, which is cool. And then you go also from there, you know, if we still have the mask. So if you start doing designs inside of that, let's say we start mimicking some of the stuff we're doing outside, but inwards. Let's see, that way. So you could start doing some of that, then maybe bulging some of these guys. So you could do that type of stuff too. I just prefer, I think most of this stuff looks like it was carved out, so I like having it carved, extruded out, I mean. But if you wanted to do carved stuff, you could do something like that. But it all based on your design, right? Like what's happening with the design and how. Maybe undo that and try something else too. Let's see, Pedrum. Yeah, it's less technical, and I guess I'm so used to the technical aspects of Maya that I just kind of I need to wrap my head around it. But it shouldn't be a big deal. I think in the next couple of weeks I might force myself to learn it. I've been kind of delaying it because I almost never need to do that, but it doesn't hurt. You know, the other thing you can do too is, you know, we were doing the damn standard, like cutting in, and you could do some of that stuff. One thing you can do too is just mask. This is the other thing, the mask pen. So if you ever have the issue where like your brush doesn't get any smaller, like right now I'm running into it, you could change the dynamic brush scale to like 1. So now you can see it's way smaller. So now I can make a. Oh. You can make stuff way easier smaller. But it also depends on your resolution, because if you don't have enough resolution, then it ain't gonna help. So one thing you can do is also do this and then turn off the mask. And push inwards. But one thing I like doing before doing that is, let's undo that real quick. Is make a morph target. So if you go to geometry, let's see, no, not geometry. I usually have something here, morph target, right? So restore a morph target to kind of keep the state that it's in now, in case you wanted to erase anything back in, and you guys will see. Because I feel like the edges round off the way they are here, which is fine, but that's not what I want. So if I were to just kind of, well, you could push in and out, but let's push inwards. Oh, no one. Right, and that's all good. It's like, let's say you're happy with that. Now, one thing I have here is a morph brush. Um, so here I can start using the morph brush to morph myself back into that position, right? And keep it also like really low. So you start fading back the detail. See, so now I can start tapering stuff. So you can go up, or you can go down. But yeah, the morph brush is it's a cool tool. I think because my masking still on. Let's see. Yep, my masking still on. Still check. Okay, that's not on. But that's something you can do to kind of help you go back to the original state, but modifying the strokes you just made. Okay, let's go back. And this is super cool having this stuff here, because you could just go back in time type of thing. You guys have any questions? We have about 30 minutes left. You know, I'll continue on if you guys don't. Let's go a little further back to undo those other low strokes. All right, cool. So now we can go back to what we were doing. Let's add, yep, I'm not using the morph brush. Turn these guys back on. Cool. So let's do some work on these guys. And again, just kind of cutting. So here, you know, obviously things are kind of a little out of whack, but here's where you can go back to level 1. And it's super easy to adjust, if you guys can see this. You know. And also I might have to adjust the other surface, but it's not a big deal. Let's see. Let's just go back here. And then worry about that tapering part that we're doing on all the other designs. Let's go fix these other guys. But yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying this chill session of just kind of sculpting and having fun and playing with designs. That's what it's all about, you know, design on the fly. We're just kind of making decisions and trying some stuff out. Some stuff works out, some stuff it doesn't. You know, but that's the whole point, right? We're exploring, making some quick decisions, and then maybe make some really cool 3D prints that we can have for ourselves, sell, or some cool concepts, some cool renders. Yeah, it's like working with a mask inside Photoshop. Yeah, thanks for clearing that up. That helps. Yeah, I'm left-handed, so all my stuff is on the left side. But Feel free to move if you copy my layout. Just shift everything over to the opposite side, and you guys should be good. But yeah, this is a left-handed setup. Thanks for bringing that up, because yeah, some people are like, it's pretty uncomfortable. Most of the time, when I was trying, coming up and trying people's interface, everybody's right-handed, so I always had to go across the screen, and for me that sucks. I can understand how it's opposite for you guys not being left-handed, but if you are left-handed, hopefully this can help you a lot, because it did for me. But if you guys think this is boring, next time I could probably leave it out and not do a lot of this stuff here. But I figure that, sometimes it's good to see that you start with something that looks kind of crappy, and then, simple, and you start making it more refined, and then it becomes part of the big design changes, So you guys let me know, because I want to make sure it's entertaining for all of us, not just for myself. Take a drink of water. So just a lot more repeating of ins and outs of this stuff, Yeah, if we start doing some more sci-fi helmets or designs, have some cool tips that I learned from one of the other streamers that's pretty cool for making cuts and kind of just using the light boolean to kind of make panels and stuff. Oh, thanks. All it is, it's just hard work. You just work hard, and eventually you end up with 60 plus films under your belt, plus commercials and whatever else you work on. So let's go add some more of those bigger cuts. Let's cut these guys up, and then we'll do the pulling. But you guys can see I'm not being super delicate about this stuff. Of course, there's other ways you can do it. You can make an insert brush that can have some of this stuff. But since we're designing on the fly, I feel like it's much easier to just kind of do this type of stuff and see how it reads. Here I'm just trying to get some of these edges to kind of pop. See here, they pop pretty well because they taper pretty nicely. But yeah, if you guys like what I'm doing, just let me know, and I'll continue to do it. It's fun doing the streams. You know, I get to talk to different people from all over the world, and you know, get to interact with you guys. Hopefully we all learn from each other. Oh, awesome. Thanks. I really appreciate that you give me that feedback, because you know, sometimes you try things and they don't look good. Like that's all part of it, you know. See, like I feel like this is going in a pretty good direction. Like it's not too busy. Let's get rid of the body so we can. Bring a little perspective, but you know, you play with some different shaders, specifically stuff that has a lot of specularity. Then you can see, like at the distance, how's this stuff working out? You know, like it's not overtaking the design. I think it's helping to kind of keep your eye going to the front and kind of even loop you in somehow. You know, and look at it from different angles. Like for me, like this is working pretty well. Now I kind of wish like I added more curlies, but I think it works for this area. It wouldn't work for this area, especially since everything's kind of tapering. But kind of like that little thing. Like I think that's, you know, that kind of mimics this. So it all feels like it's concisive design. And of course, there should be a guy in there and all that stuff. You know. Oh, some of the other stuff that was it this one? Yeah, I think so. Some of the other stuff that I was playing around with, which is kind of like the other guy has these kind of eyes, like the areas where like there's vents. So I was kind of playing around with some of those ideas, like bringing that into the design to break up that flat panel. You know, but maybe it could be like a combination where like half of it is, half of it's not. So I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys digging that part or? Hey Walker. No, I don't know what this is. This is cool. I'm glad that you guys are posting all this stuff up, because I have sometimes I don't know what some of this stuff is. Oh, this is the other thing that somebody else was talking about, Elder Squirrels, right? No, I actually never even played this. I know about it, but I never didn't know that there was all this stuff here. Yeah, like these guys are pretty cool designs. Yeah, I guess it kind of fits in. It could fit into that world. Let's see. Yeah, it's all about, you know, we're all artists. We can all encourage each other. We could help each other out. So like, why not do that? You know. What do you guys think about the eyepiece or the? Do you think that helps better than having the flat version? Like I felt like that flat version was cool, but I think the more I look at it, oh sorry, wrong one. I feel like I kind of like this more. Also, kind of feels like teeth. What do you guys think? Is that read okay for you guys? Okay, cool. Yeah. It feels modular. I think it kind of helps. I need to go refine it a little bit, but you know, I think it's reading overall pretty well. Now I was trying to figure out what to do with the neck piece, because the other guy has a pretty elaborate neck piece, which I don't feel like this guy needs to have one. Maybe it needs to be smaller, like maybe up to wherever this guy had this part, so that he could be more flexible if he's wearing something more like the equilibrium stuff. But let's maybe play around with that stuff. Cause like, how does it read? Like, let's see. Like, would it be better if you had like a collar piece to kind of mimic that part? But it doesn't like go down as far. Like maybe it mimics that piece. Maybe it goes with the flow of that. I guess another cool idea is that it can actually mimic this part, right? But maybe at a smaller scale. Yeah, him maybe wearing the robe, and then that could be like the piece that holds the robe. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for the feedback, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think if it's holding the robe, it could be cool. So this could be like a little accent of like, this is where the robe opens up, so it splits. And maybe that's where these arrows kind of come back in, right? Even this stuff can, let's see, let's lower the resolution and move it topological. So that gives him more of a being able to do that. Before, he's just like, those things are sticking out so much, he can probably not move his neck much or turn. But if they're smaller and they're still protecting his neck, he could probably still turn. But you see, even at this stage, we're getting closer to the top of the helmet being done, but now we're starting to play around with some of the design changes at the bottom. Maybe this can mimic more of this, right? Wow, only 10 minutes left. That's kind of crazy. Time kind of flew this time. Last time it felt like it took a while to get to this point. There we go. So maybe these guys start mimicking what this guy's doing, with a little bit of that curvature. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's all about the silhouette, right? Like, a lot of it's like, if you could imagine this having a rope coming off of it. Yeah, I probably need to put those holes back. He had little holes here like for ventilation, so I probably need to put those back in, but I think this is working. But now that we move this a lot lower, see, this is just like a sphere that I just took and was booleaning the inside of the face with. So sometimes the shapes look terrible inside, but it doesn't matter because that's not what you're seeing, right? You're seeing this stuff, other stuff outside. But yeah, I think I'm pretty happy the way this is going. You know, maybe I think this probably doesn't make sense sticking out. Maybe it curves down. So when it's holding the rope, like the rope wouldn't be just going backwards, like sticking out for no reason, but it could go like along that path. Hey James. Yeah, you should try it. If you guys try any of the stuff and make some helmets or make some cool filigree and this type of embroidery and details, feel free to tag me on Instagram or send me an email. I'd love to see what you guys do with some of this stuff. And if there's any better workflows, I'm always down to learn that as well. See, I think we need to continue with this spiky thing. This is starting to kind of get lost. It's all about keeping that rhythm going with the design, mimicking the shapes. Even if it's at the back too. I know sometimes people are like, what's at the back? Nobody's gonna see it. Well, I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna probably 3D print this, so I kind of want to know that this is all working. It's not just for looks to, you know, it's like it doesn't have any function. Yeah, I think this is working. What do you guys think? Let's turn the other guy on. Get rid of this guy. Feels like they're coming from the same world, I think. What do you guys think? Still a little bit of work to do, but you know, hopefully next time you guys see this, it's complete and rendered and 3D printed. Let's see. Yeah, it's a lot. See, I feel like this needs to come out just a little bit more. Like looking at this, there's like no space. But never too late to change your design. So we have to go into Topological and start only tweaking one thing. See, I feel like that works better. Now there's a little more room. Could need a little more. That feels much better. Oh, thank you, James. Thanks. Yeah, next time I'll have some links ready for, you know, if you guys want to follow me or check out my website or the Gumroad, all that type of stuff. I'm pretty new to the streaming, so sometimes I forget there's little things like that that I need to do beforehand. See, just because I changed it in one direction doesn't mean I have to go and change it in the other one so that it works as well. It's not just see, now we need to move this down too. Slightly, just a little bit, but enough to not make the design work and not flow as good. But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap this up. Yeah, Joyce, I know. Episode 3 finally done, which is awesome. But yeah, I'm gonna continue to do more of this stuff. I'm always open to suggestions. A lot of this stuff is, this type of style, and we'll do some creatures and demons and all kinds of other fun dark stuff. Oh, thanks, Pedram. Yeah, I want to make sure it just feels right. Why, I teach a lot of people, so I feel like I just cut a lot of the BS on and just kind of tell you what I'm doing and what I'm thinking. Because I've taken classes before where like it's just like, oh, just copy what I'm doing, but it's like you're not gaining anything out of that. You're just copying, and then if you had to go and change it, you wouldn't know what to do and why. Where I feel like if I'm explaining why I'm making the design changes, then when you go and do some design stuff and you get stuck, you know the theory behind it. You could go try some new things. But yeah, thanks. I really appreciate you guys checking this stuff out and tuning in, and a lot of the follows. Recently, it's been pretty good. So it's pretty inspiring me for me to keep going doing this stuff. So yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. Yeah, if you guys want to do more renders and final render type of stuff, let me know. Or if you guys like this, like just continue to sculpt and design stuff, we can continue doing that too. So I'm kind of open to your, but keep it fun for all of us. But yeah, let's see. Let me save this before we crash, because you never know when that could happen. Let's see. So let's open the original one we started with, so we can see how far we got and what the things look like, because then you guys can see what we accomplished in the last couple hours. So this is kind of the changes we made. You guys can see we changed a lot of the initial design, just just refining things in the little details. But yeah, I hope this guide, this stuff helped you guys, and you guys learned some stuff. But thanks for tuning in. It was fun. We'll do some more of this stuff soon, probably in a couple weeks after the summit. Any last moment questions or anything like that? Oh, thanks, Pedro. Thanks, James. Corgi Gazer. Thanks. Awesome, guys. Well, tuning off. I'll see you guys soon. Hopefully, see you guys for the next one. Thanks.